Hi, I'm Paula Leroy from Santa Cruz, California, and Santa Cruz Wilf. And this is the inspiration I came for. And Kozue, I wanted to ask you actually why you've chosen WILF. Of all the organizations to be the international president, why do you think it's a particularly powerful organization at this stage in our peace-building network?
Yeah. Go one by one? Yeah. Okay. I joined WELF officially in 2000 when I went back to Japan from New York, where I studied with Betty Reardon, and I wish she was here. She's the source of inspiration, but also knowledge and analysis of sexism in the war system, war as an institution, social institution, and Betty introduced me to WELF, and I probably I didn't emphasize enough, but I liked WELF because the analysis of WELF, the war and the root causes of war, and particularly the connection between patriarchy and war, as Barbara laid out eloquently, the gender inequality is very much part of the war system, and I believe that the feminist thinking is inevitable to create the world without war. So that is why I was attracted to WILF, and I stayed with WILF. And when I was elected last year as international president, it's overwhelming. But I was hoping to also bring this the issue that I have been working with in the grassroots activities of women in Okinawa and other parts of the host communities of U.S. military bases to be more fully integrated in the analysis and activities of Women's International League for Peace and Freedom.
Hi, my name is Eli McCarthy from Georgetown University and some religious advocacy circles in the area. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I have been struggling a bit in my work with peace-building organizations that are very keen to advocate for UN armed peacekeeping in different conflicts. And this is a tough issue, but we also probably know that they have been found to use sexual assault, rape, prostitution, the same things you were talking about, in at least over 16 missions, 20-plus troop supporting countries. So are we at the place where we should be not supporting UN armed peacekeeping, or what do you think should be our approach to that issue?
One of the recent works that Women's International League for Peace and Freedom have been committed to is this issue of sexual violence by peacekeepers. Our Secretary General, Madeleine Rees, is one of the first. She was with the United Nations in the 1990s when UN the peacekeepers in Bosnia was involved in not only sexual crime and assaults, but they were part of the systematic human trafficking. Women, girls from other countries into Bosnia to work in to work in brothel in Bosnia. So that's been a big issue for us, and the peacekeepers are not trained for peace, I would say. They're professional military, and each national government is responsible to provide peacekeepers. Some gender, quote unquote, gender training has been put in place, but it has proven that it's not effective to prevent sexual assault by soldiers. I think it's still a military, the militarized values still exist and within peacekeepers, and it needs to be transformed to be truly keeping and creating peace. The current structure is not equipped to create peace even in the post-conflict situation.
Thank you so much for that question, Eli. And just hats off to Eli. He's doing so much grassroots peace building in this city to de-escalate violence. You all need to talk to him if you want to be a neighborhood peacekeeper with localizing peace initiatives. And his students love him at Georgetown, so I'm so lucky to know him. Thank you, Eli, for this question. I would ask the people in those countries, what do they want? Palestinians have been asking for UN peacekeepers for 60 years. So why haven't we deployed UN peacekeepers to protect Palestinians from the military occupation? In other parts of the world, they would not welcome it. And in Haiti, we know that they gave the local population cholera. So I use the principle that peace brigades always did, which was to wait for the locals to invite us to come. If we're going to deploy unarmed peacekeepers, nonviolent protective accompaniment teams, we have to be petitioned by the local people, and they have to invite us in, and they have to want us there. And hopefully we'll work our way out of a job eventually. So I would ask the locals. But even beyond that, I would say that why do we even need to have United Nations peacekeepers if entire civilian populations were trained in nonviolence to protect their own communities through civilian-based defense and alternative security? We wouldn't need armed forces like that. So that is a whole nother avenue that we need to strengthen and fortify. Like Gene Sharp taught us, what happens when the teachers won't teach and the bankers won't bank and the railroads won't run and the schools are on strike and the students are on strike and everything is shut down and there's complete noncompliance and complete civilian-based defense. Maybe we wouldn't need United Nations peacekeepers. So that's another avenue that we need to strengthen and explore. But also we're finding in the Congo, Uganda, and other places of Africa that the people have come up with their own peacekeeping strategies and coping strategies, and there's about 7 of them. And they have early warning systems that go out to alert the villagers that the Lord Resistance Army is coming, or Boko Haram, or Al-Qaeda down from Libya, hooking up with them in Nigeria. And they've come up with defense strategies. And it also includes evacuating the local population from the aggressors. I will say, just a plug for my husband, he works at Freedom House, and they have something called Lifeline, and they evacuate human rights activists that are under threat, especially transgender folks, human rights activists and others. So it's an emergency fund. That's also being used by locals. So they have agency, local people have agency. I think of the Pink Sari revolution in India. Do you people know about this? The Pink Sari revolution in India? So it's peace teams of 1,000 women strong in pink saris defending themselves from rapists. Now, I will say they have big clubs. Well, can you blame them? But they only use it when absolutely necessary as a deterrent. So the Indian women aren't waiting for UN peacekeepers to arrive. They are protecting their own communities from the horrendous kinds of rape we've seen. But yeah, the peace teams there, they don't call themselves peace teams. There's a whole book written about this and a movie, but the Pink Sari Revolution is about women protecting other women. So I would ask the locals, Eli. I would ask what they want. Did that answer your question? Yeah.
Thank you. I think we had a question over here.
Hello, Professor Wien and Ms. Akibayashi. My name is Andre Sheldon. I'm the Director of Global Strategy of Nonviolence I mentioned before. I'm also a member of WILF for 14 years. And I'm a proud supporter of Code Pink. Hi.
Yes.
Hey! And I believe that to stop war, and that's why we're all here, we first have to unite. And it can happen if women lead the way. And if there's a plan, and I'm here, would like to humbly submit a plan to the directors of No War 2016, and it's a global movement of nonviolence for the children. So it's using Gandhi tactics like Lama Gbowee used in Liberia, exactly that, but on a global scale. And it can be done right now. I've been very fortunate to network with women leaders from around the world. I just connected with Monica Willard from United Religious Initiative, and I also connected with Ingeborg Brenes from International Peace Bureau. And they're interested in promoting women as well, and I think now's the time to do it. All the mechanisms are in place, so I'd like to ask the No War directors to review the plan, but also review the strategy that I have for implementing it right away.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I think, any more questions?
Yes, you have several over here.
My name is David Hartsoe, and there are two examples that I've come across in my peacemaking that have been very exciting where women have played a key role. One was in Russia, where there's they developed something called Mothers of Soldiers, who went into the war zones in Chechnya, thought, we don't want our sons out there getting killed and killing other people. And they took civilian clothes, put their sons into the civilian clothes, and brought them home. And it's an example of what women could be doing all over the world. This is nonsense. We're not going to put up with it anymore. The other was in Liberia, which people probably know through the film Pray the Devil Back to Hell, where after years of war and endless negotiations where they got no peace, they actually forced the warring sides to sit down at the negotiation table and wouldn't let them out of the negotiation room until they'd made a real peace. And they've gotten the Nobel Peace Prize as well as creating peace there. So I guess my question is, are there other examples like this that we can all be inspired by of the key role women have played in other parts of the world?
And I did mention the Liberian women, and they're sort of considered the gold standard. Now, they also went on a sex strike, and sex strikes are among the 198 methods of nonviolent action that Gene Sharp has chronicled. But we know way back in history there have been tons of sex strikes and a lot in Colombia as well. But yeah, the women of Liberia are fearless. And in Betty Reardon's book, the Russian women actually wrote a chapter about how they did it. And they also went and negotiated with the soldiers on the road and made the tanks turn around in the first Chechen war. But they've also gone into the prisons and tried to release soldiers from the prisons who are being mistreated because that system is so horrible. But we have thousands of examples of women from all over the world interrupting cycles of violence and war and going straight into war zones to protect the lives of not only their loved ones but of soldiers. I mean, time doesn't even permit all the examples we can bring up.
I would urge you to take a look at the history and the different activities of Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. We have over 30 sections around the world, and it doesn't have to be a war zone. And I think it's more important. I mean, it's equally important to work in a so-called peacetime for women to lead the peace movement. So,
yeah,
Wilf.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christina, and I'm from UCI Center for Citizen Peace Building in Southern California. And so I identify as an intersectional and transnational feminist, and I specify that because I think in U.S. popular media, feminism is very exclusionary. And so my question is, when you do international work with different communities, how do you ensure that your ideology, even if it's different than the target groups you're working with, how do you ensure that their needs are being met without your biases influencing them?
Mm-hmm. First, I go second, yeah.
Yeah, I think as the famous Aboriginal activist Lily has told us and taught us, if you've come here to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you've come here to join hands and work together, then let us go forward together. So it's always going to be mutual respect, mutual listening. And, with the V-Day Foundation, when we went into areas of Africa, we just listened to the women about what they wanted. And we met people on the road who were trying to stop the female cutting. It wasn't our idea. They were already doing it. And we said, what do you need the most? And they said, we need an anatomically correct torso to teach the evils of female genital mutilation. And then we said the next year, what do you need the most? And they said, we need a Jeep to get further and further in the Rift Valley. And then the next year we said, what do you need the most? And they said, we need a rescue center because the girls have nowhere to flee and then they won't be accepted back into their families. So we just asked what they wanted from us, and we just asked them what they needed, and they instructed us, they taught us. So I think if a lot of our efforts are not rooted in the local conditions, the women's movement is global in nature now, but it's rooted in the local conditions of what the women see in Okinawa, in South Korea, or in Guatemala. In Guatemala, they used domestic law to try their generals for the mass rapes in the 1980s, and they won. So for them, that was their condition, and our professors here at the law school helped them. Our law students helped write the brief. Remember in class they taught us that? Bree is my student, by the way. She's so amazing. So the women said, this is the help we need. We need legal analysis and briefs to help us write the briefs.
I think I'm being very honest, but it's always a challenge within so-called international women's peace movement. Not only at the United Nations, for example, at the level that's one, but at the grassroots level, when we try to connect, even within this women's alliance, women's solidarity in host communities of U.S. military bases, there are differences, and within it takes time, and that requires constant reminding that women is not a monolithic group. Even within one country, Okinawa, Japan has a clear hierarchy that the Japan colonized Okinawa. So we are very clear about this Okinawan group and the mainland Japanese group. For example, in Korea, as I described, that the women working in Camptown were ethnically Korean, of course, but they are in a lower social stratification in Korean society. That has to be also recognized. So it's not only race, and it's an interlocking, as Patricia Hill Collins explained years ago, but I think it still exists, and we always face that challenge, and I don't think it has been solved yet.
And just to build on that and what David brought up, I mean, for instance, the women who are stopping the pipelines up and the tar sands up in Canada, they were all indigenous women, and they invited the Nobel Peace Prize women to come up and join them. So there were women from all over the world going up there, and they did stop the Keystone Pipeline, but not before so many women died of breast cancer. I mean, Katie Mossett, Eagle Woman. I don't know if you've ever heard her.
Sorry to interrupt. We're over time now, unfortunately.
Okay. Well,
I hate to cut this short, but thank you, everyone, for this session. Next up, let's give a round of applause for our speakers.